Hello, everybody. A little bit of a different setup today, but we also have a new team we're going to talk about. The New York Rangers. Can they take that next big step? This team started off the year fairly good, and then they had a stretch there where they lost a couple of games to teams they probably should be beating. There was even some question of whether or not we should fire Gerard Gallant, but they stuck around and they have picked it up once again. They have picked it up so well that they are now 22, 12, and 7 for 51 points. Despite the rough stretch and losing a lot of players in free agency, the Rangers have still pulled it off to be fairly close to second place in the Metropolitan. Now, one of the factors into that question, can they take the next big step, is their prospect development. And Rangers fans aren't going to like to hear this. The Rangers suck at developing prospects. I'm just going to be honest with you. A lot of their first round picks who were destined to be amazing players really haven't turned into that level. Now keep in mind, a lot of these players are young. So obviously there is still a lot of time for them to take a big step. However, some of these players and how they played so far throughout their career is pretty concerning. You look at the first one here, Alexis Lafreniere, the first overall pick in 2020, was destined to be something amazing. Hasn't really been all that. 69 points in 173 games played. However, though, I will say this for Lafreniere, he has been slowly but surely making his way there. You additionally have Kaapo Kakko, who was taken second overall in 2019, and he's been way worse. 76 points in 196 games played. He has really not been at the level that the Rangers thought he was going to be, especially for a second overall pick. And unlike Lafreniere, he's kind of been in the same spot. Then you have Vitaly Kravtsov, who was selected 9th overall in the 2018 draft and only has 8 points in 39 games played. However, there is a lot of factors that play into him, as he was obviously in Europe because he wanted to get traded. The Rangers ended up not trading him. He came back. He got hurt. There's a lot to it. You also have defenseman Nils Lundkvist, who was taken 28th overall, and he was traded over to the Dallas Stars after hardly getting any ice time. Additionally, you have Lias Andersson, who has 17 points in 110 games played in his entire NHL career and is now with the Los Angeles Kings. He hasn't panned out with any team he's been on. You have defenseman Braden Schneider, who was pretty good in that playoff run, but averages third pairing minutes on that defense. Of course, because he's behind Adam Fox and Jacob Trouba. And last but not least, you have their biggest, most recent prospect, Brennan Othmann, who has obviously been in the World Juniors. He is obviously not in the NHL yet. Now you look at all these players, it is very concerning. And it may create this rhetoric that prospects don't want to go to New York. Mainly because of the Rangers just struggling to be able to develop prospects. And the biggest thing that comes with all of these players has to be ice time 100%. Lafreniere obviously plays on the same wing as Kreider and Panarin, so it's extremely difficult for him to get top 6 minutes, so of course he's not going to get insane point numbers. Kaapo Kakko has Trocheck and other players on that center core. I can't think of them on the top of my head right now. Zibanejad, probably should have thought of him. But that's the big thing with the Rangers. They have this big prospect pool, or they had this big prospect pool. But they have all of these good, right now, I don't want to say veteran, but like older players who are much more established. And it's been difficult for these prospects to crack at their potential. Now that is a factor, but of course another factor could obviously be locker room issues. Lias Andersson was rumored to be bullied back when he was with the Rangers a couple of years ago. We really don't know. Is it bad? Yes, but it's not like so bad that this team is absolutely terrible. They still have a pretty solid record, so I guess you can just take it with a grain of salt. Now anyways, enough talking about the bad stuff with the Rangers. Let's talk about some good stuff, starting off with the forwards leading the charge. The biggest forward who has been a very key contributor for this team is obviously Artemi Panarin. He's been one of those time and again. He's playing another unbelievable season so far with 11 goals, 34 assists for 45 points in just 40 games played. The second forward that is leading the charge right now is Mika Zibanejad, as he is obviously playing that first-line center spot very, very well, as he has 19 goals, 24 assists for 43 points this season, and he's obviously leading the Rangers in goals. But the third forward leading the charge is a newcomer to this Rangers team, and it's Vincent Trocheck. Losing Ryan Strome was a huge loss to that Rangers center core, and adding Vincent Trocheck to it has definitely helped them out. So far, Trocheck has 13 goals, 17 assists for 30 points, and has played pretty well as a second-line center. But I would also like to give shout-outs to Chris Kreider, Philip Hedl, Barclay Goodrow, and as well as that, Jimmy Vesey, who although he's not scoring a ton of points, has still been a pretty solid player in his second stint with the New York Rangers. Anyways, now moving on to the Blue Line X Factors, we're going to talk about one of the best defensive defenders in the league, but also still puts up some really good offense. We're going to talk about Adam Fox. Fox has obviously been a really solid defenseman for the past couple of years and won the Norris back in 2021. And this year, he's on pace to maybe win the Norris again. Fox so far this season has 7 goals, 32 assists for 39 points, and has been a great offensive and defensive defenseman so far this season. The other defender I want to talk about is Ryan Lindgren, and Lindgren's not putting up crazy points like Adam Fox, but he's still holding up that other end of the blue line that kind of allows Fox to go a little bit more offensive, even though Fox still has good defensive capabilities. Lindgren has been an extremely key contributor to Fox's offense as he has 13 assists for 13 points in just 38 games played. He's been playing some pretty good hockey. And last but not least, the backbone is Igor Shesterkin, who although he's not having like an amazing season like he was last year, he's still having a relatively good year. Shesterkin has an 18-6-5 record with a 2.43 goals against average and a .917 save percentage. He has been really good for this team, especially when the Rangers needed him to be. Now moving on to that question that I asked at the beginning of the video, do I think the Rangers can take that next step? And by that next step, can they make the Stanley Cup Finals and maybe even win the Stanley Cup? In last year's playoffs, you can make so many arguments for why the Rangers shouldn't have been in the conference finals. Penguins didn't have goalies. The Hurricanes were bad on the road and they were bad at home on Game 7. You can make so many arguments. This year, even though it's not the trade deadline yet, it will still be very difficult for the Rangers to win out on the East. You got to beat teams like the Bruins, the Hurricanes, the Leafs, and even the Lightning, even though people don't think they're going to go that far this year. It is going to be hard for this group to make it there. But do I think they can do it? Yes. They lost a lot of forwards and defenders this past offseason, and it's definitely hurt them a little bit. However, with some of the acquisitions they made this offseason as well, they've still stayed afloat, and they're still a really good team. And who knows who they could get come trade deadline. Patrick Kane could be out on the market. And if they somehow pull that off, Kane with Panarin, that team could go really far. But anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments below whether or not the Rangers are able to take that next big step. Thank you all very much for watching. Fries Pros Later, really do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe down below if you are new. And anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.